Good morning, lovely day for a sunshine rant in the forest. What is more natural than trees and dissatisfaction? I'm here today to give you another little rant because I've been thinking a lot about Chappell Roan, and I am almost convinced that she's not been thinking about me at all. We were actually momentarily in the same room recently when I went to go see a gig of hers in Brixton, although see is a very generous word because, to be honest, I was in the sitting section and nobody was sitting, and at 5'2" and poor Hannah next to me was 5 foot. I think we probably saw about 10 minutes of the show total, but that's a video for a different day. I had a great time. I think she's fucking wonderful, but this isn't going to be a in defense of Chappell Roan video because those already exist. She has already been defended. For those of you who don't know, she's been quite vocal about, one, the treatment that she's had from some fans, but really they're just, I don't know, stalkers, criminals, and she's been like very vocal about how she doesn't want to get treated by the press, and some people have called her spoiled, overreacting, who does she think she is, etc, etc. And for some reason I started thinking about Prince Harry, who also, I imagine, isn't thinking about me. Can you believe it was almost 2 years ago where we were sitting down and reading Prince Harry's Spare? That came out 2 years ago. And I remember at the time quoting You're Wrong About podcast, where they call the monarchy a very expensive kind of misery, and how Prince Harry was lambasted in the press for essentially saying, can I just have my human rights please? Like nothing more, nothing less, just my human rights and my safety and enough money to pay a security detail. And apparently that was sacrilege. And then I was thinking, well, Lena, it's not actually really like that, is it? Because it's not like she's in the royal family, like she has chosen to be famous, although to what extent you choose to be famous once you get on the roller coaster of fame, I don't know. Like once you're in the music industry and things get vaguely successful for you, like how much, especially with the rise of social media, like how much of a choice is there? And I was saying to myself, it was not like the royal family because they're not related, it's just like celebrity culture. And then I was like, hang on, they kind of are all related. The conversations over the past year about nepo babies and how many of your favourite celebrities are all in fact the sons and daughters of other celebrities or famous people, and if they're not that, they're in the Disney family where they've been like nurtured from kids on the Disney Channel to be famous and then like been ejected into the wider like adult entertainment industry from there. And in that context, maybe we can think about Chappell Roan, who isn't a nepo baby by any stretch of the imagination, as almost like the adopted friend. She's like the Harriet to Olivia Rodrigo's Emma. She like brought her on tour, and that's one of the big reasons that Chappell Roan blew up, because she was on tour with a Disney nepo baby. Is Chappell Roan the Meghan to Olivia's Harry? I'm taking this metaphor a little bit far, but you see what I mean. And we've heard a lot of criticism of why nepo babies are bad for the industry. Most of it's just centered on the fact that it's not fair. Valid, and the fact that we might not be getting the best art because not the best people are rising to the top. The competition is skewed, essentially. However, I never thought until this moment about the effect the nepo baby system, because it feels like a system at this point, might be having on the treatment of them. Not thinking about like what we're gonna get out of it or why it's not fair for other people, but how it might actually be negatively affecting them. Because when you have a high percentage of generational privilege, a bit like the monarchy, there are certain societal norms that are passed down through generations that you're taught to accept without question. And then when somebody comes in from the outside and is like, do we have to do it like this? Or I think maybe in the words of Chappell Roan, this is not how it's gonna go. People don't go, oh, thank you for pointing that out. I've always wanted to say that, but I never had the courage, or I kind of felt like that was normal, but you're right, it's kind of not. Well, I guess some people do, but a lot of people go, how dare you disrupt things? Or like a lot of people in the royal family, when Harry started being like, maybe not, maybe we don't have to take this, they started being resentful because they felt like, well, I didn't know there was an option to leave. I didn't know there was an option to say no, and how different my life could have been and how much of my life I've missed because I didn't understand that fact. And now I feel resentful and angry, and I don't want that to be true. I don't want you to get out. I don't want you to be able to say no or opt out of certain things or get your human rights, because what does that say about my life? And it's too late for me. And maybe I'm being silly, but I had never thought about that as one of the possible horrific side effects of Nepo babyism. I was always thinking about me as the consumer and how I probably wasn't getting the best art because not the best people were able to rise to the top, or just the fact that fairness is important to me. It's a core value. I want things to be fair. But I didn't think about its effect on them and how actually this kind of generational numbing might be going on. And like I said, I don't think money is an excuse to treat people badly just because people have money, which I don't think they should have as much of. It doesn't mean that they should have to waver respect, dignity, human rights. And then it made me think about this book that I read ages ago that I barely remember, but I remember thinking this was very useful. It's actually opened my eyes a lot, called Sad Little Men, which is about the English public school system, which is actually very ironically private, and where a ridiculous percentage of our MPs and prime ministers have been educated. And it's like an introspective thought bubble about that from somebody who went to a private school and is now reflecting on it from a left-wing perspective. And some people recognise that system as so damaging that there is actually a term for it, boarding school syndrome, like it's actually a thing. But even though I read it a really long time ago, something that really stuck with me about that book was that I remember him saying in those kind of schools, a complainer was literally the worst thing a boy could be. Less than like disruptive or violent or rude or a snitch. Like the worst thing you can be is somebody who complains. He quoted somebody in it called David Turner. I actually wrote down this quote because I thought it was really interesting. He called boarding school the traditional first step in the time-honoured barbarianism required to produce English gentlemen. And that idea that there is a type of raucous violence that's required for that much polish and refinement in like a social class really resonates with celebrity if you think about it. Like they have been conditioned from a young age to be like, whatever people do to you is fine and the payoff will be worth it. Like Prince Harry got hit by photographers with their cameras just in case he might react and they might be able to sue him for it or get a fun picture. Like they're literally physically hitting him. And when people are shouting at Chappell Roan on the carpet when she's been taking pictures of in this like really violent way, which if somebody did it to you on the street, like that is still a hate crime. Like you can actually get arrested for that, and I don't understand. Maybe not in the US, but I saw the clips and I was like, bloody hell. And then I saw recently people getting really upset because Chappell Roan had cancelled one of her gigs because of her mental health and she needed to take some time off, and people were really angry about it. And I thought again about this idea of like, who's allowed to walk away? Who's allowed to take a sick day? Who's allowed to say like, this is literally making me ill? Can we take 5? And I think when we think about Nepo babies, we think a lot about all the talents that we're missing out on, never hearing about or never seeing. And when we think about fame as abuse, we think a lot about the people that we have lost, like the people who have literally died at the hands of the press and their bullying, and us really, the public bullying. But we don't think about what we might lose if somebody has the fucking balls to just walk away. And I genuinely think that Chappell Roan might have those balls. From some of the interviews, she's just like, I am actually just gonna, like if this gets too much, I'll just stop. And that sounds like absolutely wild to people who have grown up in a world where being a celebrity and getting success and money is like a chalice you don't turn down. Like, it doesn't matter how much poison's in it. Like, why wouldn't you want this? Oh, don't be ridiculous, everybody wants this. And what's scary is that to some extent, like, her face is out there now. Like, she can't walk away. Like, she can't just be anonymous again. But she could just stop making music, or she could just start making it for herself. It makes me sad how weird, and not bad, like I'm in awe, but like how weird it is to me to see somebody in the public eye who probably cares more about their art than they do about the money, or like I'm sure that some people do, but they don't get the chance to show it, or it's not like so evident as it is. And it's so clear, especially when she turned on the H&M deal. I know we just had a little rant in this very forest talking about Charlie XCX working with H&M, and I got a lot of comments on that video of people being like, why are you surprised, everybody's doing it, blah 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 blah. And the whole like everybody's doing it so it's fine is actually another video that I made that I have unpacked. And I think we were actually, I think we were in this forest when we were talking about it. The whole notion of like, oh well, it doesn't matter because not everybody's doing it, so it won't make a difference. And how when you unpack that statement, how silly it seems, and how I used to say that to myself all the time, and then I thought about it a bit harder and I was like, hang on, no, that doesn't make any sense. The idea that celebrities and Charlie XCX doesn't owe us any political statements is true, but it's also true that working with H&M isn't a neutral statement. That's not a blank canvas of an action. That's a very clear, very loud, very audacious political statement that you don't care about child exploitation. Like, it's actually wild to me that people think that's neutral. That's actually really fucking scary, to be honest. But where were we? Chappell Roan. Getting really off track here. I talk a lot on this channel about positive panic, of using our panic when we see what the absolute shit storm is happening in the world, and trying, instead of like sitting in that panic, to use it for something positive, and to like not ignore it and just be like, everything's fine, sunflowers and roses, but like acknowledge the panic and use it for something useful. And while I can't affect Chappell Roan's life in any way, watching what is unfold is really useful for my brain, because it makes me think, like, in what way am I a nepo baby? In what way have I like just received things that are normal? And then why does it make me uncomfortable when somebody comes along and is like, maybe we shouldn't eat meat? That made me feel really uncomfortable for years. And it took a long time for me to be like, God, maybe they're right. That is a little fucked up, isn't it? That's a little bad. But for ages, I was like, Chappell Roan, shut up. We've always been doing this. Stop rocking the boat. So like, one, what opinion or thought process or person in my life is my Chappell Roan, who is making me uncomfortable and making me feel like, what, you mean I could have walked away this whole time? And then also just like absorbing that motto, this is not how it's going to go. This is not how it's gonna go. This is not how it's gonna go. This is not how it's gonna go.
I've been famous for like 1 month. This is not how it's gonna go, girl.
Say it to yourself in your head. This is not how it's gonna go. Whether that's like stuff you're reading on the news about the climate, or about things that are going on in your own country, things that are going on in your own life. We all need a little Chappell Roan on our shoulder going, this is not how it's gonna go, bitch. So yeah, that's what I've been thinking about, and how I feel like Chappell Roan is not just about Chappell Roan. Although I think what's funny is that she has this like look that is inspired by drag queens, that is like a white painted face sometimes, and she talks about how she chose that look because people called her a clown in her hometown. And I think that's, I don't know, when it comes to thinking about this, it's also kind of funny because she's kind of making she's the clown coming in and getting people to laugh at themselves, or at least reflect on themselves, and making people feel uncomfortable, as clowns do. And I just think it's really interesting. So yeah, that's what I've been thinking about today on my little woodland walk. What are you thinking about? I maybe need to think a little bit less about Prince Harry and Chappell Roan, but at the same time, maybe not. Because I think when people say like, oh, why are you talking about celebrity culture? There's like way more important things to be talking about, like the world, there's a lot of urgent things right now. And I'm like, yeah, that would be fine if celebrity culture didn't relate to our idea of worthiness and work and money and who gets protected and who gets to say stuff and who gets to complain and who doesn't get to complain. Because I personally think that those things all relate to literally all of the problems that are happening in the world. And if celebrities are a way in for us to talk about that, or maybe a way that you clicked on this video, like, so be it. We can't perfectly segment every different subject in the world into a clean category, nor should we. And also, if it works, it works. I don't know if you've noticed, but we're running out of time. So whatever gets us talking about these issues, fine by me, because I don't know if you've heard, but this is not how it's gonna go. Thanks for coming on a walk in the woods with me. This has been nice, hasn't it? Thank you so much to the Gumption Club who tip me per video. If you like my little rants, I actually upload one every single week to my Patreon in the form of a podcast that you can plug into your Spotify or like any of your podcast apps. That's quite cool, isn't it? A little secret podcast just for us. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in a wood near you. You never know where I'm gonna just pop up and start ranting with my big red glasses. So consider yourself warned. Frog Snug out.